My name's Renee Lim, and I'm a practicing medical doctor working in hospital emergency. I see a lot of very ill people, and one of my main missions in life is to prevent life-threatening illness by promoting good nutrition and diet.
My name's Joe Avati. I've got an honours degree in food science, and I'm here as your average Joe. I'm Italian, and I just love my food.
Along with accredited dietitians Hanan Saleh and Geraldine Giorgio, we're the food investigators. On Food Investigators tonight, highly processed and fast foods. Be careful, they can be fatal.
The sort of things we think are important are fat, alcohol, not enough fibre, and perhaps an irregular diet.
Recession nutrition. The Second World War ration diet brings a young family together.
We've had some good family time, haven't we?
That's good.
I just think sometimes we don't get that as much.
And milk. Why doesn't it taste like it did when you were a kid?
Because there's been a consumer trend in the last 5 to 10 years to fortified products, so high protein, high calcium, reduced fat.
Right.
We need to break the milk up into components.
Australians eat around 2.7 million takeaway meals every day, and the developed world gets through around 9 million tonnes of hot chips every year. Fast food is quick and tastes great, but it's also hard to digest and dangerous. Highly processed and fast foods are huge contributors to the risk of bowel cancer. And bowel cancer kills around 80 Australians every week. It's a big problem, but early prevention is easier than you think. Joe Avati's been investigating.
Like tens of millions of other Australians, John is a member of the fast food nation. He's 42, lives alone, loves a drink, eats a lot of fast food and skips a lot of meals. And he pays a heavy price. He has gut pain, flatulence and constipation.
But last night, actually, I didn't sleep very well. I had a bit of trapped wind. Like, and when I fart, I really fart. So it's like really quite trapped. You know, there's quite a lot of trapped wind, so I get a bit of pain.
John suffers from irritable bowel syndrome. So does 30% of the Australian population. And he's worried about bowel cancer. So he's come for a consultation with gastroenterologist Professor Terry Boland, Associate Professor of Medicine at the University of New South Wales.
Well, the sort of things we think are important are fat, caffeine, alcohol, not enough fibre, and perhaps an irregular diet.
Yeah, look, I think for me, it's really based around often drinking. You know, if I have a big session, or fatty foods typically can wreak havoc with what I'm doing.
Studies suggest that the longer food sits in your gut, the more likely it is to turn toxic. And that increases the risk of irritable bowel syndrome or bowel cancer.
Now, when did this begin?
It was about a year ago, and I did a trip to overseas to the States, and I got an infection over there and came back. I was quite ill, and then I had the IBS symptoms from there.
It doesn't really matter what the gastroenteritis was due to, what particular bacteria. You can get it in Sydney or you can get it in New York. It damages the nerves that line the bowel and makes them more irritable and sensitive, particularly to foods that might trigger that. So I've mentioned fat, alcohol, caffeine.
So we know the trigger for John's problems. But he's had a hard time for over a year. And this is one of the reasons why.
This pizza's like an old friend. Familiar.
Like a lot of takeaway foods, pizza is made from highly processed ingredients, which can hang around in the gut longer than they should. The speed at which food passes through the gut is the bowel transit rate. If it takes more than 24 hours, it can rot in the gut and turn toxic.
You know, it's a bit like sort of having a bit of a nervous stomach a lot of the time. It's not a very pleasant sensation.
John needs to start a high fibre diet. That means regular meals and a big cutback on this.
things that spring out are your diet is erratic in that you sometimes miss meals, and you particularly might miss breakfast. And if you don't eat a high fibre breakfast cereal at breakfast time, then you're not going to achieve a high fibre diet.
Fruit, vegetables, porridge, muesli, whole grain bread and crackers, bran and potatoes don't hang around the gut long enough to become toxic.
Sometimes when you try to eat a high fibre diet, it's difficult because you do have more gas and that makes you more bloated and you pass more wind. So when you change your diet to something that's higher in fibre, you have to do it gradually.
Yeah.
John will go on a strict high fibre diet for 10 days. To avoid too much gas, dietitian Geraldine Giorgio will design a diet to give John at least 30 grams of fibre a day. What does it have to be classified as high fibre?
Well, high fibre needs to be over 3 grams per serve,
Right.
and then very high needs to be over 6.
All right.
Fresh fruit will have a bit more fibre because you're actually eating the skin, where obviously these have been peeled, but there's still a little bit of fibre, 1.7 grams per
Right.
serve.
So Geraldine, what about white bread? Like this one here says twice the fibre. Is this good for you?
Well, it can be, because what manufacturers have done is they've put this hidden fibre into lots of these low GI or medium GI white breads by adding extra wheat fibre but still keeping it white. So yes, you can still have this, but you might find that the type of fibre is not as insoluble as, say, something like soy linseed.
Right, okay.
And we all know that you can get beans in many shapes and forms, chickpeas, red kidney beans, 4-bean mix. So even something like that, 1 serve per tin, maybe add a bit of tuna. There is now on the market high in fibre pasta.
Put it in there.
Yep, I reckon you should give it a shot. And if we look at the fibre content, we're looking at least, it says even 16 grams of fibre per serve.
Wow.
We're aiming for 30. What do you reckon, John, for dinner? And you know, I might give in to a little bit of some frozen fresh berries maybe.
For breakfast, John will have a choice of high fibre cereals, porridge and whole grain toast. Lunch is whole grain sandwiches or a jacket potato. Dinner is meat, fish or risotto with lots of different veggies. And dessert is berries. The evidence is clear. A high fibre diet is great to avoid toxic waste in the gut. What isn't clear is John's ability to completely change his lifestyle.
Yeah, not really enjoying it at the moment. Body's wanting to go back to the pizzas and the beers, that's for sure.
Will he crack and go back to the junk food and beer? Find out next time on Food Investigators.
If you're aged between 50 and 65, then you probably took part last year in the federal government's National Bowel Cancer Screening Program. Unfortunately, there was a fault with some of the kits, and around 500,000 people will have to do the test a second time. If you received your kit between December 2008 and May of this year, then please repeat the test. New kits will be sent out in 6 to 8 weeks. Coming up, the World War II diet for tough times. How rationing can make a young family's life better.
I've been helping quite a lot. I made the whistles.
And why are factories fooling with milk? Who changes the taste? And why doesn't it taste like it did when you were a kid?
Some people standardise their milk with some skim milk powder to help get the proteins up.
Volume for volume. What provides more vitamin C? Oranges or cooked broccoli? Find out after the break. Before the break, we asked which has more vitamin C, oranges or cooked broccoli. The answer, broccoli. A standard cup of cooked broccoli contains 123 milligrams of vitamin C. The same volume of orange only contains 69 milligrams. Milk. Unless you're lactose intolerant, you'll probably drink around 100 litres of cow's milk a year. But why doesn't it taste as good as when we were kids? The answer? Reconstituted fats. And in some specialty milks, you'll find vitamin powder, omega-3, soybean oil, vegetable gums, and corn extract are now all a part of the mix. And they certainly weren't put there by the cow.
Once, milk came from the cow to the user in a simple way. The farmer milked his cows and the milk went to the commercial dairy for bottling. Flavour and fat levels changed depending upon the breed of cow and the season. Milk from a cow fed on grass tastes different to milk from a cow fed on hay.
When you get fresh grass, there's a lot of protein. We get a lot of milk out of it, but we don't get much butterfat. So the butterfat's going to go down a little bit in those times.
Right.
And when we get into the winter, the grass will harden up a bit more and more fibre, and we get more butterfat.
There was always cream at the top of the milk bottle, and when we were kids, milk tasted like milk. Welcome to Milk Confusion. It's hard to find old-fashioned milk among the non-fat, low-fat, skim, cholesterol-free and additives. Only certified pure organic milk comes close to what Grandma used to buy. And no matter what you choose, your milk has always been pulled apart in the factory and put back together again. This milk factory pulls apart 800,000 litres a day. The fat is separated and the skim milk is used to rebuild a whole range of different products. Low fat, full fat, skim, milk with additives are all re-engineered to a standard factory taste. Over the last 20 years, the demand for full cream milk has dropped by almost 25%.
Because there's been a consumer trend in the last few years, or even 5 to 10 years, to fortified products, so high protein, high calcium, reduced fat, we need to break the milk up into components. By breaking it up into components and being able to standardise, we can produce a consistent product all year round for our consumers.
But not all dairy farmers toe the factory line.
Some people standardise their milk with some skim milk powder to help get the proteins up.
Right.
I don't do that. I just leave the milk as it is. So when you open a bottle from month to month, it might be a little bit different, but that's the experience that I want to give people.
So it is possible to find milk that tasted like it did when you were a kid. But if you shop in one of the major supermarket chains, then re-engineered milk is what you'll find.
Well, it looks like nothing is simple anymore, not even a glass of milk. And when I hear about those additives, the soya bean oil, the vegetable gums, the mineral salts, I start to wonder if maybe we wouldn't be better off with old-fashioned milk. A little later in the show, we'll reveal the scientific truth behind simple, non-engineered milk. And then you can make up your own mind. Last week, we sent a family of 6 back in time to see if the restricted diet of the Second World War would help them deal with the tough times of a modern-day recession. How do you feed a family with no pre-packaged food, limited fruits and vegetables, and only 900 grams of meat, 450 grams of sugar, 225 grams of butter, and 90 grams of tea? It's not that easy, as the Heptonstall family found out.
Right, everybody in the car, please.
Meet the Heptonstalls. Like any modern family with young kids, life is like a 3-ring circus. The kids get driven everywhere, and there's a constant round of sports, music lessons, and after-school activities. And until the World War II diet came to stay, Mum Anne was a one-woman a la carte restaurant. Some nights, she'd whip up different meals, one for each picky eater.
There won't be the choice of the 5 varieties at the dinner table.
5 varieties?
Some nights we have had 5 meals. We've had 5 different restaurants going on.
But not anymore. Food investigators dietitian Geraldine Giorgio is on hand to monitor the Heptonstalls as they live on their World War II diet.
In the World War II time, we used to measure out things, and you're only allowed certain amounts of food a week. Nothing in a packet, unfortunately. We're going to have whole foods that have been made by you.
All right.
The kids are eating like they would have done in the 1940s. No more pizzas, hamburgers, Asian takeaway, or fast food chicken.
Chicken was a delicacy because they wanted to keep the chickens for the eggs.
And no junk food at school.
Being a bit strange, only seeing like the sandwich and the 2 pieces of fruit in the lunchbox and the bottle of water, and then nothing else, like no snacks or anything. And just passing the tuck shop every day going to class has just been so hard.
It was different for mums in the 1940s too.
You worked harder because you didn't have the help. You didn't have the washing machines, the drying machines, the vacuum cleaners. So it was pretty hard, but I think we were a contented lot, really.
Life is easier today. But Anne is still a busy working mum. And without access to her packed pantry, she's under pressure.
The dinner first, then I can do the pudding. We've got to just stop.
The days I have worked, I've come home and not started dinner until about 6:30. And the first night, I must admit, we were very green and very stringent to what we were doing, and it was 8:30, and then I turned and went, there's probably every saucepan I own and every measuring stick.
But here's the big change. The kids are pitching in like they've never done before, but like they would have done in the 1940s.
Eating, good girl. I think they're enjoying looking at the recipes. They want to make their own bread tomorrow.
Oh, I've been helping quite a lot. I made the rissoles, and it was really fun making. Yeah, it was really fun. And the worst things that we've eaten is definitely cabbage. Oh, Dad's really loving it. He feels like he's in heaven.
Oh, I've forgotten the taste of cabbage, but it's really nice now.
They're actually eating their dinner, clearing the plates and eating the desserts, which is absolutely fantastic.
What I've learnt about food is that there are some things that you don't think that you really don't like, but then you say, oh, this is brilliant, and then you get a surprise for yourself.
Seeing the delight on their faces or their achievement, for me, it makes it worthwhile. I think from this experience, the kids will probably be a bit more adventurous to taste something that I put in front of them.
The lesson for the kids is clear. Life without constant junk food and takeaway is not so bad after all. Not only that, they're taking their rationing very seriously.
Day one was challenging.
Yeah, mince patty.
I'm loving the fact that they're actually recording it down. I probably will even refer back to that, and I might make it again, which to me is exciting to think that out of this, we're going to maybe do some really basic cooking, but everyone will be happy. And I'm looking forward to the fact that I will only cook one meal.
We might change our diet a bit. This has been a bit educational and we've learnt a lot from it. So what's in it, Mum?
Just onion, a bit of tomato.
It's the last night of the ration diet, and Geraldine and I have been invited over for an old-fashioned meatloaf straight out of the 1940s.
Thank you so much for cooking us dinner. I know it's been a very long week and a lot of cooking involved.
Well, talk to me after you've eaten something.
Both have been working really hard at making it last. How's it gone?
The meat, I was surprised. I was able to manage with the 6 of us. I was very aware that I was limited, and so I made sure I had cooked enough vegetables, I think.
I guess the main thing I hope came out of this experience is that the 4 kids get away from the idea of fast food and get used to the idea of slow food.
But Anne wasn't expecting the emotional effect of the rationing on her family.
And if nothing else, I have to say it's we've had some really good family time. Haven't we?
That's good.
We've all sat down as a family, and I just think sometimes we don't get that as much, and I think it's been a lovely experience for us.
That's nice. Very good.
They've been very good. The kids, I have to say, I haven't been the happiest person some days because I've been a bit tired, but we've stuck to it, and I have to say thank you to all of you for putting up with Mum. You have been wonderful. It's been a wonderful experience.
That's all right.
Thanks to Mum.
And if you want to know more about anything on tonight's show, please visit our website, sbs.com.au. science.com.au/foodinvestigators. Coming up, the truth about old-fashioned, non-engineered milk.
If you include your 4 serves of dairy every day, you can help protect against osteoporosis. There have been some limited studies to show that dairy can also protect you against things like blood pressure, colon cancer, and even type 2 diabetes. But in terms of dairy providing protection, osteoporosis is probably the biggest one.
Can red wine make you more intelligent? Find out after the break. Before the break, we asked if red wine can make you more intelligent. The answer is yes. Red wine contains the chemical resveratrol, which improved the performance of test subjects in mathematics. Earlier tonight, we showed you the chemical modification that a lot of milk goes through getting from the cow to your kitchen. But what if you just stick to the old-fashioned kind you had when you were a kid? As natural milk factories on the move, these Frisian ladies will each produce around 25 litres of full-fat milk a day. And for at least 10,000 years, their ancestors and dozens of other breeds have been aiding human nutrition. Often people ask, does fat-free milk contain the same nutrients as whole milk?
Fat-free milk is essentially milk with the fat skimmed off. No other differences are noted, so no water should be added, and essentially the vitamins and minerals are the same. If anything, some products contain higher amounts of calcium.
Is long-life milk full of chemicals?
Well, long-life milk is off the shelf, and so many people think many preservatives are added, but in fact, they ultra-heat treat it to 135 degrees, killing off all the bad bacteria, but leaving the vitamins and minerals in place. So it's probably a good backup to fresh milk when it runs out.
What health problems occur if you take milk calcium out of your diet?
Osteoporosis is the biggest one, and if you include your 4 serves of dairy every day, you can help protect against osteoporosis. There have been some limited studies to show that dairy can also protect you against things like blood pressure, colon cancer, and even type 2 diabetes. But in terms of dairy providing protection, osteoporosis is probably the biggest one. But just remember, you do have to include regular physical activity to protect against that.
Does milk increase unhealthy mucus?
It's another misconception. Milk does not cause mucus formation in the mouth. Although the saliva in your mouth might thicken when you drink a glass of milk, this might be mistaken as mucus production. But in fact, there is no scientific research to prove that milk causes mucus production.
And is it true that a glass of milk before bed will benefit your health by helping you sleep?
A glass of warm milk with a bit of honey can actually help you sleep better, but there is a bit of science behind it as well. The milk contains an amino acid called tryptophan. When you have the honey, it also releases insulin in your body. This is what helps transport the tryptophan into your nervous system, and then it's converted into serotonin, and that is actually what helps you sleep better.
And from a medical point of view, cow's milk has some major advantages. Low-fat dairy, combined with fruits and vegetables, will help to reduce high blood pressure, more than a diet of fruits and vegetables alone. Next time on Food Investigators, fighting fast foods with fibre, the story of one man's bowel-busting battle against pizza and beer.
This morning I just had some bran with water. Beat that.
Fish. We all know it's good for you, but what's the most nutritious fish of them all?
Well, the Food Standards of Australia recommend we eat fish up to 3 times a week.
And does the inside of your fridge look like this? If it does, then you're probably helping to waste over $5 billion worth of food a year.
This is very nice. 2 years ago. Best before November the 5th, 2007. I don't think we'll be using that at any
Till next time, eat well, be healthy.